Welcome to 2.3. In 2.2, you read the short story Charles, where we hear a story that maybe isn't entirely accurate. So in 2.3, we are going to take a tip from Lori about writing our own stories. And our objective is that you'll be able to take on an alternate perspective to write your own response to Charles. So, what is perspective? It can have a huge impact on the story. Generally, when we're talking about literature, perspective means who is telling the story and how does their point of view, their opinions, and their way of thinking affect the way they tell it. An easy way to think about this is to imagine a fight that you had with someone. How would you tell that story? If the person you fought told the story, would their version be the same or different? My guess is they'd say it a little bit differently than you might. So, in a story, perspective is really important because it shapes our understanding of what's going on, especially if the person telling the story is biased or is missing some key information, like Laurie's mom in Charles. We're going to practice a bit with identifying perspective from our first short story, Simple Recipes. So here's our first example. Whose perspective is this and what is their tone? There is a simple recipe for making rice. My father taught it to me when I was a child. Our second one. Today I made a recipe of fish and cauliflower that used to be my favorite when I was a child. Number 3. Today, after a long day of work, I was happy to come home to a meal prepared by my husband and daughter. And finally, nothing I do is good enough for my stupid dad. Even when I'm choking on his cooking, he blames me. So, as you can see from those examples, if we take the same family, but change whose perspective we're following, we get a very different view of the story, and that's just in one or two sentences. So, for 2.3, you're going to be writing a very short narrative based on Charles. You're going to think about a character other than Laurie's mom, our original narrator. How would they tell the story? If Laurie was telling it directly to us instead of through his mom, how would his story be different? Would Charles even exist? What about if the teacher was telling the story? How would she describe Laurie? How would she describe Laurie's mom? Or what about another kindergarten student in the class? Would their story be similar to Laurie's? What would be different? Here are some examples of story starters you could use with each of those perspectives. Well, Laurie, he's probably going to be pretty direct. Today in school, I was bad, but I tricked my parents and said that it was Charles. Laurie's got all the information. He knows what's really going on. The teacher is probably going to take a more professional tone. I'm very concerned that Laurie is having trouble adjusting to his kindergarten class. And another student is going to see what's happening, but be a lot more casual about it. Laurie was so naughty today. So, as you're writing your narrative, you can use one of those story starters or come up with your own. But you're going to put yourself in the point of view of one of these characters and write your own short version of Charles. I can't wait to see what you come up with.